Hello, my name is Lee Alton Lichtenwalner. I'm here with Sarah Jane Williams and Ann Bartholomew, and we're here interviewing Ferne Druckenmiller, a charter member of the Historical Society. First of all, can you give us your full name?
Sarah Ferne Druckenmiller.
And do we have permission to record this?
Yes.
Thank you. Where and when were you born?
Allentown, 1930, November 11th.
And who else is in your family? What?
My mother, my father, two brothers.
And your maiden name again?
Hepler,
Hepler.
Hepler.
Okay. What was the work that did they do? What was your father involved with and your mother?
My father was a railway mail clerk, and my mother was a secretary at one time, but mostly she was at home.
Do any of your family members live nearby?
No, not really. In fact, almost all my family members of my main family are gone.
Well, your children.
Oh, my children? Yeah. Well, my daughter lives only about a half a mile from me, my daughter Donna. My son Jimmy lives he just moved. He lived in Emmaus until a short time ago.
Okay.
My son George is out in California, and my other daughter, my older daughter, lives up in Canadensis in the Poconos.
And can you describe the area where you live?
I'm on top of the Macungie mountain, back in the Hecka.
And how long have you been there?
Over 65 years.
And how long was your marriage?
Just a month short of 69 years.
And your husband's name was?
Kent Allen Druckenmiller.
And how did you meet him?
I picked him up in the drugstore.
Oh, yeah. Very good.
I had tickets to our ball, and the person that I had asked couldn't get leave, and I knew Kent through his mother at church, and I asked him if he would like to go to the ball with me. I had the tickets and everything was paid for, and he sat there a while and he went like this and he said, I guess I can. And that's
Played hard to get, did he?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we went to the ball, and that was in May of 1948. And we were married in December of 48.
What activities did you do while you were married?
Well, I was a stay-at-home mom, really. We couldn't have children, and we decided we were going to take foster children because there was a 5-year waiting for a baby at that time in 1949. And so we had 13 different foster children, and not for long times. I think the longest we had was for 25 months. The others were just short-term kids.
Foster.
And we really had fun. We really did.
Going back to where you live, can you describe the area, what it's like on the top of the mountain?
Well, we're off the main road, and we're really in the woods. There's a dirt road going back past our house. There are a few more homes in back of us, but we have 30 acres, and we love it. And I told Kent when we bought this place, I'm not moving, you're gonna carry me out. I have moved so many times in my life, I don't wanna move again. I don't think I could with all the stuff I have.
That's typical. At the end of your road, there's a former schoolhouse. Do you have any of the history? Do you know any of the history of that?
What's his name? Wilson.
Wilson Wetzel.
Yeah, he had bought the schoolhouse a number of years before we moved up there, and he used it as a family get-together place. And he had it for quite some time after we moved there. And then he sold it. And then it was sold again. It was sold a couple times before a Traub bought it.
Was it a two-story?
Yeah, there were two stories there,
Okay.
yeah. It was a nice little place for what he wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
And we were invited quite often when he had family things. And his wife and he and Kent and I used to go to dances together.
The other end of the property is a large estate,
Yeah.
family estate
Yes.
owned by the Traubs with a pond and all that.
Yes.
Which is a little bit unusual for the top of a mountain, I think.
Yes. And when they first moved there, there was just the one old stone house. Then they built like a cabana and put a pool in. And then for a long time, Dick Traub wanted to move back there. And he just never did it for a long time. And when he finally moved back there, 2 years later, he died. And it was a shame because he loved it back there. They were up every weekend to do things at the place.
The Traub family was involved with what?
Traub's Market over in Allentown.
Do you know where your ancestors came from, both yours or
Germany.
Kent's? Germany?
In
And
the
Kent's too?
1700s.
Kent's too? Kent?
Yes.
Yeah, they
Yes,
both, you're both, yeah,
Yeah.
they both
German.
came in the 1700s.
Yes.
And where did they settle when they came over?
I think in this area, because everybody seemed to be in the same general area, in the Druckenmiller family. Now, the Hepler family were farmers, and they were up in the Ashland Pittman area.
Okay.
And my grandfather had a quite large farm. I think it was about 100 and some acres, a dairy farm, which I loved to go to when I was a kid.
And you grew up in Allentown or?
Not for a long time.
Just
When
a
I
short
was
period.
quite young, we moved to Philadelphia, and then we moved again to Philadelphia until my third or fourth year in school. My parents divorced, and we moved to Allentown to my grandfather's house.
What was school like?
Oh, I loved school. I just loved school. I loved everything. I loved geography and art. I loved art also. And I lived with my grandmother till I was going to 8th grade. In 8th grade, I was in 3 different schools. I was in Jefferson School in Allentown. Then we moved out between Emmaus and Veracruz, and I went to the Veracruz school. Then they found out that I was in Emmaus. Then I moved back into Emmaus. And then I was in Emmaus till high school. And
Did you have to take a test to get to high school?
no, I started in Emmaus in 8th grade.
Okay,
So I was there for 8th to 12th,
okay.
yeah.
Did your grandparents speak German or Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania Dutch.
Pennsylvania Dutch?
Both sets of parents did that. My father didn't want to teach us Pennsylvania Dutch. He thought it was too Dutchy.
It's the same with mine, only it was my mother didn't want it. My father wanted us to. But
The only time they spoke Dutch in front of us was when they didn't want us to know what they were talking about.
exactly. Very good. What games did you play when you were young?
Oh, well, I had one brother that was just a year older than me, 11 months older. And so he and I played together a lot. And it was pretty rough sometimes. But I played jacks and tag, naturally. And with my dolls, I had dolls all over the place.
So dolls were most of your
Yeah.
toys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And every Christmas time, my mother would surprise me and take all my dolls, take their clothing off, wash them and iron them and have them all fixed up for Christmas morning.
What are your current hobbies?
Gardening, Girl Scouts, church. I was a teacher in church from the time I was 15 years old. When we moved to Emmaus, I started at St. John's Lutheran Church, and I wasn't there no 3 weeks, and they asked me if I wanted to help in Sunday school. So from that time on, I was a teacher in the church, and I was a catechetical teacher for about 30 years.
Can you talk a little bit about your Girl Scout experience?
Oh, you don't want all that.
No.
I mean, that's a long story. I started out when my youngest daughter wanted to join the Girl Scouts. And she wanted to go into brownies. So I started with brownies, and I think I was a brownie leader for about 5 or 6 years. Then she went into juniors, and then into cadets. And I wasn't a junior leader because they had a good leader for juniors. And when I got into cadets, that was my thing. And I was a member of the Girl Scouts for like 55, 56 years.
You're still selling cookies?
Yes, believe it or not, even though I don't have a troop anymore. Last year, I decided when my girls were graduating, I wasn't going to start a new troop at 90 years old. So I said I would give my list of cookie people to the girl in my church who was a member of a cadet troop. And she came to church the other Sunday, and she had a package for me. And I said, now what is this? And the girls wanted to buy me something because the list that I gave them, which I sold over 200 boxes of cookies to, got them enough money that they could go to Savannah on a trip. And they were so happy with this, and that is a good trip to take a troop down there. They have a very good program. So she had a package for me, and I had to open it in front of her. And it was a T-shirt from the Savannah Girl Scout.
True, yeah.
Yeah, and I already had one, but I was glad to see it because it was a new one. Mine was pretty old. So they were very glad that I helped them out, and I was glad that I couldn't leave all those people without getting Girl Scout cookies. So I gave my stuff, and it helped another group.
I will let you know you're my dealer still.
Oh, I am.
Yeah.
Well, I kept the ones that lived in the outskirts, because for the people to try to find people, to find you up on the other side of the mountain, and you know, it would be pretty hard for the girls. So I kept those, and I contact them.
Well, I appreciate it. Do you collect anything these days?
I did. I wish I wouldn't, because I don't know what I'm gonna do with it now. But I collected plates, Rockwell plates,
Okay.
and I think I have close to 100.
Wow.
And I really don't know what I'm going to do with them. Maybe Donna will just keep them and let her take care of it.
When you were growing up, did you have any aspirations or any particular
Oh,
goals?
I wanted to go to college and take art. That was what I wanted to do. I can still remember when I was in 2nd or 3rd grade, my art teacher, I had done a drawing of a single cosmos flower and painted it. And she took me and my picture up to the older classes so that I could be shown around that I was a good artist at my early age. And I still remember that. I felt so proud of myself.
Very good.
Dumb.
You were a charter member, you are a charter member of the Historical Society. Was there any reason why you got involved, or you?
Well, my neighbor came and said that they were starting this, and would I like to be involved? And I said, oh, okay, you know, I'll see, maybe I can help out. And
That's the Dykmans, or?
yes, yes, Rosemary came and talked me into it.
Well, we're glad they did. Can you talk about some of the items that you've donated to the Historical Society?
Girl Scouts especially. I don't know, a lot of little things. And a lot of things I donated to the Emmaus Society also because of my being involved in Emmaus so much. And a lot were Kent's parents' things that I had. So I've been giving to them also.
Once again, we appreciate it. How do you celebrate holidays?
Hopefully with as many kids that come as can.
They do it at your house, or?
Yes, yeah.
Your holidays at your house?
Up until this year, I had them at the house almost every holiday.
Has the community changed in your area, or is it mostly in beyond the mountain? How much change have you seen over the years in the area?
Oh my goodness. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I really feel that I am glad I'm on the way out. I have had a good life. I have had a good family. I have very good friends at church, and through Girl Scouts, I still have people coming up to me and saying, Mrs. D, do you remember me? In fact, last week I went to the pharmacy, and the pharmacist said, you're from St. John's, aren't you? And I said, yes, and you are, and he gave me his name. And I said, oh, you were in one of my catechetical classes. He said, yes, I was. And usually when I find somebody like that, they say, and you were tough.
Your Pennsylvania German, Pennsylvania Dutch background, is there any particular foods that you enjoy still?
Sauerkraut.
Sauerkraut.
We make our own sauerkraut. Anything from the garden. I always have had a big garden. And, let's see, what else?
Do you do any reading these days?
I read all the time.
Any particular genre or any particular type of reading?
I love mysteries,
Mysteries?
but I also like history. And I have a book going all the time, especially now when my daughter doesn't let me do anything.
Several.
Yes.
Are there any particular accomplishments, challenges, or frustrations that you've had?
Well, Girl Scouts has been some frustration sometimes.
Probably one of your bigger accomplishments too.
Yeah, well, that would go in with that, I think. I think having foster children was an opening of my eyes to how some kids are treated. But other than that, I enjoy church. I enjoyed teaching the kids, even though they say I was pretty rough on them. But it makes me laugh though when an old Girl Scout comes up and says, "Do you remember me?" And I have to say no, because I've had so many. And the same with the catechetical class. I've been going to funerals lately, and kids from the family come over and say they were in my catechetical class. And it always makes me laugh when they say I was rough on them. I was also a good sewer. I made clothing for my kids. I even made a jacket for my husband, and he really wore it.
A sports jacket?
Yeah. And I was a seamstress. I did alterations for other people, and I enjoyed that too. But it also, I had a separate envelope for everything I earned as a seamstress. And that was what we used for our trips. I had a separate bank account for that.
What kind of machine did you use?
I had an old Singer treadle machine. And that was what I started with. It was my mother-in-law's. And I finally had it made electric. And that's what I used. Yeah. That was fun too. I had some pretty funny things that I did as a seamstress. A friend of mine wanted his sleeves shortened. I shortened two of them, the same two. He went into hysterics when he saw it. I said, "Bob, I'm so sorry." He said, "Don't worry about it. It was a good thing."
I don't know if does Ann or Sarah Jane have any questions?
Well, your other artistic pursuits include Sharon Schnitta, and you used to play the marimba. Talk about that a little bit.
Right. During high school, I started on a xylophone, and then gradually I went to the marimba, which my poor father would get a truck and carry around to the places where I was asked to play, usually at school. And when we went to Mexico the first time, there was a group playing, and the girls said, "Come on, Mrs. D." Well, that was a long time ago, but I did play a little bit. I really enjoyed it though. And I also enjoyed being in the chorus and the singing groups at school also. And I like to sing in church. And that's one of the reasons I sit in the front of the church, because sometimes I'm not on the same verse as everybody else in the church, and I don't want anybody else to know it.
You're following the melody, but in a different Right,
different words.
different words. Very good. And do you have
Well, you
any?
did the Scherenschnitte for many years. You taught that as well as selling it at craft shows, didn't you?
Yeah.
Do you still do it?
No, I have trouble with my fingers. They're numb at times. And to cut the little pieces, you know, they just don't work that well anymore.
Same here.
But I did enjoy making them. I really did.
They were beautiful.
Yeah.
You and Kent used to do square dancing, didn't you?
Not square dancing as much, but regular dancing.
I remember
Big
you
band.
in a big wide skirt that looked like a square dancing skirt.
Yeah, that was for something special. I don't even remember what that was. But we loved the big band music. And we traveled following some bands also. We went out to California even, I would say maybe 4 or 5 times, to the jazz festival out there, which was usually over the Memorial Day weekend. And we really enjoyed that. And I still have all the records. And a friend of ours who is no longer with us gave us all his records. His wife did when he died. And I've been selling them at the flea market. You know, I take a box in and have them out for $1 a piece. And one guy came and said, "What do you want for the whole box?" And I told him, and he said, "Sold." So I got a whole box gone.
One time. Very good. Anything else?
But we really liked to dance. We were out, I would say, at least 2 to 3 times a week
Wow.
on a Saturday.
What about your most memorable Girl Scout trip?
Oh, that was over to Europe. 22 days we went. A friend of mine had a senior troop, and she was taking her troop over to Europe. She had been there before. So she knew all the ins and outs of what we had to do. I was just traveling along with her. And I think I took 7 or 8 girls with me. And we had 22 days in Europe. And 2 of the girls who were single parents earned the whole amount, which was $2,200. They earned all the money because their parents couldn't pay anymore. And that is one trip I don't think any of the girls is gonna forget. That was the best trip. The first trip I took, which was shortly after I took the troop, I had another friend as a leader, and we took 7 or 8 girls out to Wyoming. Now that was, we drove. We had a van for the girls, and father and mother took a truck for all our, and we camped out. We didn't go,
Hotels or anything?
yeah, one or 2 times we had to go to a hotel. But we camped in the rain, and when we got there, it was really primitive camping. We had to set up our campsite and get the rocks out of the field, and that was a good trip too, and that was my first one. A lot of memories.
Yeah.
Have you seen much of the United States by traveling with the
Oh,
Girl
yeah.
Scouts?
And Canada. They had a program with the Girl Scouts, Canadian American Girl Scout exchange. And one of my girls was involved in that. So I took troops up to Canada a couple times because I met the other leaders up there. And that was those were good trips too. I think we went 3 or 4 times to Canada. And then I also took the girls down to Mexico. I took 5 different troops down to Mexico. And that, I can't do that anymore. I think they closed it. It was just too much going on for the girls to be down there. I wanted to go to India, but I never got there.
How involved were you in terms of leadership in Girl Scouts besides your troop? Were you in,
Oh, I was involved a lot.
in
Yeah.
what way? Like what?
Well,
level?
for a long time, they had a program going where the girls would have a program with their church. And I was involved in that to get them what they needed, to do the things that they needed for the badge. But Girl Scouts have changed a lot. And it's not the same. But what is,
Anything else? Well, I want to thank you. It was quite enjoyable. Today is July 31st, 2022. And once again, we want to thank Ferne Druckenmiller for this interview.
You're welcome.